Good evening. I'm Reverend Ellen Debenport. I'm the Vice President of Publishing for Unity. Welcome to another Unity Books Presents. I see you signing on from all over. Every time we publish a new book, we have one of these events to talk about it. And tonight we're celebrating 100 years of Daily Word, the book and the anniversary. So thank you all for joining us. We're talking about more than just the book. We've got a star-studded lineup tonight. First, I'll talk with Reverend Teresa Burton, who is the current editor of Daily Word. And then later on, we will bring in our panel. Reverend Jim Blake is the Unity CEO. Kathy Beasley heads the Unity Prayer Ministry. And Anne Tabor is a minister in Arlington, Texas. Jim and Anne will be speaking at the Fillmore Festival in August, which is also about celebrating the Daily Word anniversary. So before we start, yes, this is being recorded. You will get an email when the recording is ready. It may be a couple of weeks before it's ready, but you will get it. Also, if you have questions as we go along, you can put them in the chat. The chat moderators might be able to answer you. You can also route questions to me and the speakers through the chat. So let me start with Reverend Teresa Burton. She has been the editor of Daily Word since 2019. I take full credit for hiring her. It was a brilliant hire. She seems to think it was a God thing, but she does whatever we ask her, and I ask her for help on this anniversary. So just to recap the book quickly, the very first message in Daily Word was July 1st, 1924. And we knew this anniversary was coming, and so we've been planning it for about 3 years. And we knew we wanted a book to be part of it. So Teresa and I talked about how to organize that and decided to set it up in sections using a dozen of the most popular words in Daily Word, like healing, forgiveness, joy. And so we split them up. She took 6, I took 6, and we went through the archives of Daily Word, and we pulled 2 messages per decade per word. So there are more than 200 historic messages in the book, along with articles from Daily Word and poems that some are really touching and some are hilarious. And then there are newer articles about the history and growth of Daily Word. So what I realized when we did this, Teresa, is that Charles Myrtle Fillmore did not start Daily Word. I mean, I assume they approved it as a publication, but it was the brainchild of Frank Whitney, who was the dean of the Unity Correspondence School. Can you tell more about him?
Sure, I'd be happy to. What's really interesting, there are so many interesting things, but one of the things that I think is most interesting is that Frank Whitney was born the same year that Unity was created, which is widely considered to be 1889. And prior to joining Silent Unity, he worked as a dentist, which I think is a fun fact. And then I guess he was more interested in preventing tooth decay than tooth decay, to borrow a line from Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck, another dentist in our movement. And he worked in Silent Unity and then became dean of the Unity Correspondence School. So he was communicating with students from the Kansas City area and beyond it, teaching them spiritual truth. And he decided somewhere along the line that Unity would benefit and its students would benefit from a daily devotional that could be subscribed to, where readers would get a message every day that would aid them spiritually and also aid them in their studies and in their understanding of spiritual truth. So he created it, and it launched July, as Ellen said, July 1st, 1924. And in the beginning, he wrote many of the messages himself. And he was the founder, the first editor, and he held that position until the year he transitioned. So he did it for 14 years.
And another fun fact, he was married to a very young woman named Clara May Hoagland, who became the director of Silent Unity, succeeding Myrtle Fillmore, when Clara was 16 years old. She is better known by a later husband's name. She was May Rowland. She was the head of Silent Unity for 55 years. And so he had Silent Unity in mind with Daily Word, too. He thought all these people connecting with Unity needed something inspirational to read every day. What do you think he would think of it today, Teresa?
I think he would be surprised and delighted by our history and by the reach. I don't think he could have imagined in 1924 that Daily Word would be read in more than 100 countries and translated into several languages after English. It's really amazing the reach that we have and the many ways that Daily Word has blessed readers from all walks of life.
You were the one who pointed out to me that Daily Word has only had 10 editors in its history, which is fairly remarkable, as some of them stayed a long time. Martha Smock was there for 33 years. Colleen Zuck was 24. So you've got another 20, 30 years to go in this job. But what called you to this job?
What called me? My professional background prior to the call to ministry was in publishing. I've been writing and editing for as long as I can remember professionally. And when I discovered Unity in the year 2000, I started attending a church that was local to where I was living, but I was also doing a lot of reading. I was impressed that there was just a library of information, that there were so many books to read. And like many people, I started with Eric Butterworth before I got into the more challenging reading of the Fillmores themselves, and Unity Magazine and Daily Word. And there was so much to take in on that level, so much to learn, not just in terms of feeling inspired and not just in terms of feeling comforted, but also just to learn about metaphysical thought and spiritual truth. And I'm still learning. I still love to read, and there are always new things to read. And Daily Word is, for me and for so many people, the introduction to Unity.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to devote my professional career and my particular talents to this magazine it's a dream come true. It really is.
It's been great for us too.
Thanks.
When we first talked about this event tonight, we said, well, let's give people a behind the scenes look at Daily Word. And Teresa said, okay, behind the scenes, she sits at a computer all day. And that's how Daily Word is put together. So I still think there are questions people may have about how Daily Word comes together every bi-monthly issue, especially how are the words chosen? Because I've noticed some are repeated every month and some seem brand new.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can start there. We can start with how the words are chosen. That's one of my charges, one of the things that I do. And the words that repeat, there are 15. Do you want me to run down all 15?
No, we'll
Okay.
We'll get to them later.
But, if you read Daily Word, you know what they are. They're words like joy and faith and prosperity and healing. And these are the topics that most readers and most callers to the Unity Prayer Ministry want to read and hear the most about. So those are the ones that tend to repeat. And if you have the Daily Word book, you'll see that those are the topics that Ellen and I researched in the archives and that are featured. Others are sometimes based on special days. For instance, just last week in celebration of International Women's Day, the word of the day was divine feminine. That placement was deliberate. We also recognize, of course, the Christian holidays, but also several North American secular holidays, such as Thanksgiving, and I'm blanking on others, but there are others that we do too. And then sometimes I hear from readers They might write to me and say, you know what, I haven't seen in a few years. I used to really enjoy this particular word. How about bringing that back? And I do. So I'm constantly responding to the feedback I get from the world and also from specific readers who reach out to us.
And on those American holidays, because Daily Word is a global publication, you probably won't see today the United States is celebrating its independence. It's the 4th of July.
Right.
What you'll see is a message about freedom
Yes.
or independence. And
Yes.
it may or may not mention that there is an American holiday related to it.
That is correct. And that's because we want the messages to be for every reader, no matter where they are in their life's journey, no matter where they might be on their spiritual journey, and no matter where they might be in the world. Because spiritual truth is universal and it's applicable to all people, regardless of whether they might be celebrating a particular holiday in their country.
Right. Then there are the words that are perfect for a day that no one could have predicted. I mean, I know that you keep in mind some things that are going on, like the Super Bowl or an election in the United States. You don't write about that specifically. What was the Super Bowl word? Strength?
Strength.
I mean, there's thought that goes into it. But there's so many days when people will say, it's exactly what I needed. And I'll give you an example. You know, Unity Village is adjacent to Kansas City, Missouri. The Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl and a few days later had a victory parade through downtown that ended in a mass shooting. It was heartbreaking for everyone. And the next day's word was comfort. I
Yes.
mean, you can't plan that 6 months in advance.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's why, we often say it's a God thing. Our work is divinely inspired. And the prescience with which some of these words are placed is, I guess the term is, it can give you God bumps sometimes. We don't know how it happens. We just trust that people will get the right message in the right way on the right day.
Yeah. Now, you don't write all these messages.
I do not.
I know the writers are traditionally anonymous, but can you tell kind of, is it a group? Is it the same group all the time?
I'd be happy to. I work with a team of writers who range from there are some ministers, there are some licensed teachers, there are other Unity people who just like to write, who aren't necessarily in any kind of leadership role in the movement. Sometimes, they feel called to the work, and then sometimes when they feel their work is complete, they say, "Okay, I'm gonna step down," and then someone else is ready to come in and take their place. And I work with them remotely. Most of our work is done electronically, through email, occasionally through phone calls. Many of the writers on the team I've never actually met in person, but I have working relationships with them all.
And they are diverse geographically and ethnically.
They are.
About a dozen of them, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And I think right now I have 11.
So before we bring in our panel, I wanted to talk to you about one more thing, which is the reader response to Daily Word, because we get a lot of comments about Daily Word. And Teresa is always very gracious about feedback, but I'm going to categorize these as complaints and praise. What is the complaint you get most often?
It's interesting. The complaint that I get most often, I think, is actually a testament to just how universal Daily Word is. That sometimes people will complain that a particular message did not resonate with them. And I find it amazing that most of the messages actually do resonate with most of our readers most of the time. It really is remarkable if you consider the wide range of human experience, human emotion and just general living, just the variety of things that can happen to someone. So when a reader writes to me or reaches out to me and says, I take personal exception to this one message on this one day in this one issue, and I really think it's a testament to just how often most of these messages work for most of our readers.
See, that's a really positive way to look at it. I would be saying one message out of 365. Some of what I've heard from readers is, because we get it from both sides, this is way too Christian. There is way too much God and Jesus in here. And then the next one says, whatever happened to God and Jesus? I don't read about them in Daily Word at all anymore. What is your aim there?
My aim is to, within each issue, have several messages, some that reference the Bible. They reference Bible stories, gospel stories, Jesus in particular, and contain quotes from the Bible. Others are more secular, more about positive and ethical living. Some are more spiritual, and they refer mostly to our, each reader's divinity, each reader's ability to express the goodness and the glory of God through their own divine power. And not every message is going to appeal to every reader in that way. There are more traditionally Christian, more religious readers who want every message to reflect that viewpoint. There are others who might identify as spiritual but not religious and maybe get a little turned off by overtly religious language. So we try to serve as many people as possible with as many perspectives and backgrounds and desires as possible.
And we know that most of them read it through their own lens anyway.
Yes.
So they're not picking it apart. They're prepared to agree with it from whatever their point of view is. And we also know that about 20% of subscribers would be considered unity people. The rest are Baptists and Catholics and sometimes atheists, and they all love Daily Word.
Yes.
We got a quick question here, Teresa. Does the writer get both the scripture verse and the word before they write the message?
What the writers, yeah, that's a good question. What the writer receives from me is a word, the word of the day. I send them an email. Here are your words for the month. And it is up to the writer to compose the affirmation, the message, and choose an accompanying Bible verse.
Right. So we talked about complaints. Let's talk about praise. So many people say Daily Word's been in my family for generations. I can't get through the day without it. Are there any specific stories that have touched you from people who rely on Daily Word?
I've gotten all kinds of reports, and often those reports are, messages of comfort or messages for people at a low point in their lives, maybe needing some guidance, maybe needing some comfort, maybe needing some peace. But I'm going to share two pretty positive messages, they're all positive messages, but two positive experiences that came to me just recently. And the first is that a woman who had been widowed some years before was thinking about beginning to resume her dating life and felt conflicted, felt that she wasn't quite ready to move on from her husband, and wondered if he would want her to go on. And this reader actually received the message via email. And on this particular message, this particular day, was a cardinal, which she took as a sign that it was a message from her husband. And that word of the day was empowerment. And she took that to mean that he wanted her to feel empowered, to feel ready. And if she felt ready, that she had his blessing to move on and to begin to date and to really enjoy life again. And I received another message from a reader recently who was considering taking a geographically far-flung vacation that would be physically demanding, and she didn't know if she was really ready to do it and if she wanted to take that on until she received the next day's daily word, which was brave, and which included in part the words, opportunities to climb higher, push myself, and do the things I'm not sure I can do. And that was the prompt she needed to go ahead and sign up for this vacation.
Wow. It's amazing how the little messages can make such a difference
They really
in
can.
someone's life.
Yeah.
There's
And,
so
and
much
that,
meaning.
that's always it's such a gratifying part of this work.
One more quick question from the audience.
Sure.
How does today's daily word compare to the daily word of 100 years ago? More or less references to scripture? Did they reflect the reality of events of the era like World War II and the Depression? I've got my answer to that, but what's yours?
Okay. I would say that the difference between the earliest messages was that they were geared specifically toward a Unity audience, particularly toward Unity students who were trying to understand and deepen in their own awareness of spiritual truth. So those early messages tended to be a little more instructional in tone, and also tended to assume that the reader was going to already have some knowledge about metaphysical thought. Contrast that to today's messages, where the reader may not only be a student of metaphysical truth, but also may not even know what unity is. They just know that they love daily word. So today's messages are more broadly inspirational and less metaphysically oriented. I mean, they're metaphysically oriented, but they don't presume that the reader is going to have that background.
Yeah. And the one about reflecting the reality of events, I ran into this when I was pulling messages for the book. No, they didn't talk about it, and it was frustrating to me. I wanted to know how they got through World War II and what they said during the Depression. And the messages are there, messages of peace, messages of prosperity, but they're not connecting the dots with the events. And I think it's because they didn't want to name anything negative. They didn't ever mention the flu pandemic of 1918 and 19. We don't know quite what they did or how they felt about that. And I understand the principle behind it, but I really am curious to know how they used principle to get through some really tough times in America and in Missouri during the time that the Fillmores were alive. Okay, it looks like there are a number of volunteer writers for you if you need some more. I think Teresa's full up right now. But I want to bring in our panel. They've been waiting in the wings. So you all feel free to turn on your cameras now. They're all here. Jim Blake is the CEO of Unity World Headquarters and also an ordained Unity minister. Kathy Beasley is the senior manager of Silent Unity, the prayer ministry. And Anne Tabor is the minister at Unity of Arlington in Texas. And so they have each come prepared to talk a little about Daily Word tonight in various ways. But my first question for each of you is, how has Daily Word inspired your life? Anne, let's start with you.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you. Daily Word has inspired my life in so many, many ways. I've only been reading for about 15 years, so I feel like a newcomer. But I'm one of those people, every single message I feel like was written just for me. and for my life. And I hear that from my congregants every single week. Prior to the pandemic, we used to read the daily word prior to our service, but then we started incorporating it into the actual service. And almost 2 years ago, we started reading it in Spanish as well. So we read it in English and Spanish every single Sunday. And it is just such a joy and delight, and it touches so many people's lives. For me personally, one of the things I love to do, and I'm sure that there are others that do this, but when I go to the doctor's office or like Target, I just like sneak one in and leave it there. Because I've heard so many times from, and I'm sure you have too, oh, I just found this daily word and it changed my life.
Right.
Another thing, do you remember that commercial, Don't Leave Home Without It? When I travel and I just got back from a trip, I always take a daily word with me. Even though I have access online, I just like to have that hard copy with me. So those are just a few ways that it really has impacted my life.
Yeah. Yeah, we should add here, it's not just in print. You can get it by email every morning, or you can get it through the Be Unity app. And the chat moderators will tell you how to sign up for those. Jim, how has daily word been important in your life?
Well, similar to Anne, since 1997, it's been a part of my morning prayer and meditation, and it's a compass for my life. So I don't know how it's written precisely for Anne and me, but it is, and that's the magic of daily word. The other thing is that I've found really rewarding is in our work here at Unity, the leadership team since the pandemic has met every morning at 8:30. And even after the pandemic, we were going to stop, but we didn't, and we keep meeting. And daily word serves as the opening prayer. And so it sort of sets the consciousness and the tone for our meeting. And often it's a collective message for us as we do this work. And so I'd say those are a couple of the more powerful ways it has inspired my life.
Yeah. Kathy.
Thank you. The daily word has been with me, I believe, as long as I've been breathing. My grandmother would read the daily word, and she had a way of like manifesting this thing out of a pocket or out of an apron or a purse or something. And she would read it to us, and then she would put it away. It was like one of those sacred things that children couldn't handle. And so I didn't know what this magical book was that she was reading to us, but the words fit and wove into my humanity, even as a child. And after she transitioned, we were going through some of her things, and she had this beautifully adorned shoebox with her collection of the daily word. And so when I came to Unity 15 years ago, I was just sitting around in the bookstore, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. What is this?" And I opened it up, and it was like being transported back to the front porch to hear her voice read those words to me, and how they could come to life. So these words, this meaning, this depth, it has been with me for as long as I can remember. And I grew up in a family that is still Baptist, Methodist, and Pentecostal. And they get as their birthday presents a subscription to the Daily Word, which they love. And if the subscription like runs out or is starting to run out, I get a call. Hey, can you do the thing? Because I need to keep my Daily Word. So it means the world to me. And I start my day. Each day when I come into my office, it sits on the corner of my desk, and I pick it up and I'm like, okay, God, what are we doing today? And in reading it, it always fits. It is like the perfect pair of sweatpants or something, but it always fits the day. And I love it.
There's a marketing tagline. Daily word, like the perfect pair of. So these three have chosen, or maybe they were assigned, words that appear regularly in Daily Word. And this is actually a little preview of the Fillmore Festival, which will be at Unity Village in August. There will be 12 or 13 speakers who have each chosen one of the popular words from Daily Word, and they'll be giving short power talks about the meaning of the word, the metaphysical meaning, how it relates to principle and unity teachings. And so we're doing just an abbreviated version of that here tonight. So Jim, back to you. What is your word from Daily Word, and what special meaning does it carry in unity?
So my word is peace, and I've been working with it for quite some time. I think the special meaning for me in unity is it feels rooted in one of the most foundational practices in our teaching, and that is becoming still, or going into the silence, as Charles Fillmore used to refer to it. And I think everyone understands, pretty easily that when you pray or you meditate and you touch that stillness within, you're going to walk in the world a little more gently as a result of that. But I think what gets lost to some people is the actual breadth of the power and impact of that practice, and of really trying to come from a place of peace. So for instance, when you're centered in your peaceful center, as it were, when you go through the world, you tend to respond to the outer world versus react to the outer world. I think we all know what that's like when you're tired or upset and you react emotionally in the moment, and oftentimes we'll have regrets. But when you come from that place of peace and you're able to center on it with the daily word or meditation or prayer, you tend to have a moment where you are paused and can respond to the particular situation. And I think even beyond that, if I look and reflect with the founders, for instance, Myrtle had this quote. I found it in a letter from Myrtle Fillmore to Miss Gregory in 1930. And she writes, "When you are centered, poised, established in the Christ mind of peace and harmony, your outer world of affairs and your whole environment will be transformed and will manifest the good that you so desire to see brought into visibility." And so it's so much bigger than just coming from a peaceful place and the impact it has on you personally. And then I'm going to take it a step further, and I won't go too far down this road, but the ripple effect that's created by how you respond in the world is immeasurable. There are so many interactions and things that could happen where if you reacted and had an emotional moment, and maybe were angry with someone, that impacts them, that impacts their mood, their day, and how many choices do they make, versus when you respond from this place of peace, that also has an impact. And in most cases, most of us have encountered in our life a time where someone has said, "Do you remember this day when you did this thing?" And for us, it was probably not a big thing and we didn't remember it, but they were touched and moved by it. And so that's my word. And that's why I think it's such a powerful part of unity and its history, and a really great word from Daily Word is because of the ongoing ripple effect it can have in your own personal life and those that you touch each and every day.
Jen actually wrote a book about this. We did one of these events with him last year. I think it was last year. It's called The Zen Executive, and it is about peace at work and in leadership, and how your consciousness does affect everybody around you. Is that the best example of how this word peace has shown up in your life, Jim?
Well, I can tell you this, I lived a good portion, the first half of my life, not living from that space, and it wasn't working, right? And so it came in steps for me. When I first was introduced to prayer and meditation, I wasn't sure I bought it because people started describing what would happen in your life when you committed to it, and it was consistent. And sure enough, all these synchronicities started to happen, and I was able to respond, and there was creative moments and lots of inspiration. And then from there, I just wanted to go deeper. I wanted to go, how can I do this more? How can I have it cover more of my life? And the more I studied, the more I began to understand just what the larger impact could be. And so, yeah, I would say certainly in phases, but it's been very impactful for me in my life.
Thank you.
Yep.
And you have the word healing.
Yeah. Well, let me just, if I can, this is sort of a plug. Okay, so this beautiful, gorgeous book, one of the things that it says in the chapter on healing is that, in a sense, every Daily Word message is about healing.
Yeah.
And that is a universal understanding because we are all healing from something. Healing is happening all the time, whether it's relationship, financial, of course, health. There's so many different ways from which we are all going through healing. However, it's very reasonable, but most of us want to think about healing as a physical cure. And of course, that happens too. But at the core of every healing is a spiritual healing, and God is in both of them. And part of that journey is just really coming into that understanding of our innate wholeness, of our oneness with God. And if you're new to unity, that certainly can sound like a platitude. But when you break it down, the way that our co-founder Myrtle Fillmore did, her healing was not complicated at all. She was diagnosed with terminal tuberculosis. She heard a great message that you are a child of God. She took that into her practice. She began blessing her body. She had the discipline to bless her body every day, and she had a healing. But her healing was both physical and spiritual. Our master teacher said, or purported to have said, what I do, you can do, and even greater things. Don't we just wish he hadn't said that? So, when we tend to think of healing as being black or white, when we come to the core of it, can you experience a healing by forgiving yourself or someone? So I love this word. When I was in seminary, I coined the phrase, put a myrtle on it. And I'll be talking more about that at the Fillmore Festival. But it is one of the things, it's one of the reasons I have such a commitment. That's the word. I have a commitment to the unity teachings because of healing.
Okay, you have to tell us now. What does it mean to put a myrtle on it?
Ah, really? Okay, I might make you
Yeah.
sing. I might make you sing. Okay, so to put a myrtle on it is a little prayer. It's taking in her teachings, and it's an affirmation, and it's about really pausing every day. That's why I said discipline, to bless your body from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. During the pandemic, I created a little YouTube show called Put a Myrtle on It. And we end by singing that affirmation. From the top of my head to the tips of my toes, I'm healthy and whole in mind, body, and soul. From the top of my head to the tips of my toes, I'm healthy and whole in mind, body, and soul. Yay! Now, there's a reason that sounds familiar, because it's universal, right?
Oh, I thought you were going to say because it's the theme to the Beverly Hillbillies.
Well, I have heard that. I have heard that, Ellen Debenport, but it's because it's universal. And it's just a part of the practice. Putting a myrtle on it is doing exactly what Myrtle did, not complicated. Just pause to bless your body, to be grateful for the body temple that you're living and breathing in.
I love that you talked about all the different ways that there are to heal and how many types of healing we need. We have a new booklet that just came out called 1,000 Different Ways to Heal. It's free. The chat moderators will tell you where to get it. But since we're on the topic, you might want to know that's available. All righty, Kathy, your word is prayer, fittingly.
It is very fitting, not just because that's what I have the blessing and honor of doing for the movement, but prayer is everything to me. I was born in an era where women over 40 didn't give birth successfully. And when my mother found out that she was pregnant with me, if there had been an emoji at the time, the doctors would have gone. And instead of being afraid, she called every praying soul that she knew to bless her every single day that she carried me, because she knew that there was something more and some purpose for my life. And then here I am, a few short days later. But the thing about it is, for me, is I am the product of prayer. And I understand, prayer doesn't necessarily change things, it changes people. And we as people, we have the privilege and honor of changing things. So when I think about what prayer really means to me, it is liberation from the limitation of the body and the mind. I am never so free as when I am in prayer. While I was doing community-based ministry, I had a member of our community who every Sunday, when I prayed, he would take his phone out and he would video the prayer. And he said to me one Sunday after service, because he had put together a video montage of this, and he's like, "Hey, Rev, do you know that when you pray, you are always smiling?" And I was like, I did not know that, but is everybody else smiling too, or is everybody else looking at their watch trying to figure out how to get to brunch? But prayer is something, it satisfies my soul in a way that I can hardly even articulate. It is the place from, as I was listening to Jim, where you talk about the place where you lead from. Prayer is the place from whence I come. Every single day, there is some element of prayer in my life, in my home, something. And I have learned how to turn one of the things I don't care for, which is folding the laundry. I've learned how to turn that into a prayerful exercise. And now, thanks to Reverend Ann, I've got a little musical something that I can hum along with that, which is going to so excite my family. I can't wait until tomorrow. I'm going to do laundry just for the heck of it and sing the laundry folding song now. But prayer is everything. And it's something that allows me to be free from everything that is unlike it. And so it wakes me up, carries me through my day, and it is prayer that sustains me. And so I am blessed by the prayers of the people that I know, and blessed by the prayers of the ancestors that have prayed for me even until this moment.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Silent unity, where you work, is unity's window on the world. I mean, it's how we know what people are thinking about, what's in their minds, because they call for prayer. And that feeds into daily word too. We know the top requests for prayer. Healing is always at the top, isn't it? And then the others are shift around a little bit, but it's mostly guidance and inner peace and what else? Prosperity?
Inner peace, prosperity, divine order. We have a lot of general prayers that really wind up in that needs-based area. I need somewhere to live. I need a job. I need love. Prayer is perhaps one of the most humanizing experiences that we have, because it connects us one to another over and over again.
We're getting comments in the chat about how much silent unity means to people, how many years they've been blessed by it, and that they love receiving the letter confirming that the prayers are continuing for 30 days in the prayer chapel, and that their prayer request was received and heard, and everybody gets a personal response if they want it.
Absolutely.
You can be anonymous if you don't want it.
And I tell you, one of the things that I found since coming to work with the prayer ministry is, as much as it means to you to be on the receiving end of that, it is exponentially greater to the people who offer these prayers every single day of their lives, to have the world heaped upon them, and to know and be able to operate from a place where we know that God is our help in every moment, and to be able to affirm that for about 3,500 people a day in various forms. But they love it, and it exudes from them in every way imaginable.
And so the connection between silent unity and daily word, what was it you were saying about people calling for daily word?
So it is a little known Unity Prayer Ministry fact. Probably anywhere from about 30 to 50 times a day, we'll receive a call where someone just wants to have the daily word read to them. And not because they don't have it. It's just something about hearing it. And when I tell this crazy story about when I was new and I was in training, I went to the website with my class and we pulled the daily word, not knowing that it was the daily word for the day before. And when we started to read the daily word, the caller said, "No, that's yesterday." And so it is just something about hearing it and reading it at the same time, having that multi-level experience of this word made flesh and fresh in you. People call and ask for that. So don't tell the prayer ministry that I told y'all. But if you just want to have the daily word read to you, just call in. And when they ask how may we pray with you, just say, "Hey, I would love to hear the daily word for today." And with all the love and compassion that we have, we will share that word with you.
Someone is saying Silent Unity's guided me through most of my journey through the 75 years I've been on earth. I'm so grateful for the ministry.
Mm-hmm.
That's how people feel. Now, see, the reason I'm not in customer care is because I would point out to people that there is an audio version of Daily Word with every email they get with their digital subscription. But you're saying that's not good enough?
It's everything we do in Unity is personal. You get the letters, and for a very long time, I only ever did the electronic prayer request. But the first time I opened up one of those letters, that thing spoke to my soul as though somebody had a camera or audio device in my home that they could hear the very need. So it reached into the depth of my being. And I think it's the same thing with hearing the daily word. It's something about being able to call and know that you are listening to a voice of compassion that's right there in the thick of it with you in that moment.
Yeah. Okay. In the chat, they say person to person is powerful.
It is.
All right, listeners, this is the time when we can take questions if you have them. We have one from a few minutes ago. We need a Unity historian for this. There's so much about Unity that reminds me of the work of Mary Baker Eddy and Christian Science. Is there any connection from the Fillmores to that work? Yes, absolutely. Who wants to answer that? Okay, I will. Mary Baker Eddy had a number of students who broke away from her and set up their own teaching ministries and schools. One of those was Emma Curtis Hopkins, who came from Boston to Chicago and set up a school. And that's the person who trained Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. In those days, they considered Christian Science to be just a generic term. Charles Fillmore loved the word science. And for something to be scientific, I think to him gave it more legitimacy. And so to find a scientific approach to Christianity, which is what he was doing through the power of mind over body and principles that are universal and apply to everyone. So he started using the term Christian Science, and Mary Baker Eddy said, "No, that belongs to me," which is just as well because he came up with the word unity and it has worked even better for us. But yes, there is a connection. That's why it sounds familiar. There are some differences too. Unity has no problem with doctors. Okay, I'm looking for other questions in the chat. A lot of questions about the app. Maybe I shouldn't have brought that up.
Google it.
Okay.
Ellen, one of the questions is with regard to the ability to favorite daily word messages, and that is indeed going to be added in the next year. So I can answer that
Yes.
one.
Okay. Okay. What else is important? Anne, you're coming back for the Fillmore Festival in August. And what do you expect it'll be like? Have you been to one before?
I have not been to one before, but I'm just thrilled that they exist. I mean, any opportunity to talk about Charles and Myrtle. I will share this. I started a page many years ago called Daily Fillmore. And I did that just for the express purpose to share a quote from Charles and Myrtle every single, well, now I should probably call it almost Daily Fillmore. But just to be able to share these teachings with this universal message that we have, much more alike than different, with a wonderful name like unity is just such, what an incredible blessing that we're living in this lifetime right now with this message. So I haven't been before, but I am very excited to be there and very excited to meet all the people who are coming.
It is
Oh
hard
my God.
unity.
Sorry,
What'd you say?
Ellen.
Go ahead.
I said, oh my God, I did not know that you were the person behind Daily Fillmore. That's amazing. Thank you for that great work. It's one of my favorite in my feed. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Reverend Jim. Yeah, I don't really talk about it a lot, but that was a great share. So thanks for the question, Ellen. Yeah.
Is it just on Facebook or other platforms as well?
It's just on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, I can tell you the Fillmore Festival is a little geeky around the Fillmores, but that's what makes it fun. It is hardcore unity people and people who know a lot of history about unity. Here's a message about Daily Word. 70 years ago, my mother began reading the Daily Word to me. I was 3. And she continued reading it to me for about 15 years when I left home and got married. I still love and treasure it today and have shared subscriptions so many times. It's been a spiritual foundation of my life and always will be. That's the kind of thing we hear a lot, isn't it, Teresa?
Absolutely. We hear that those kinds of sentiments quite a bit. And it's such an inspiration, I think, to the team and definitely to me to know that we're not just publishing and providing information, we're providing inspiration. We're providing hope and comfort. And our readers let us know that all the time. And we're really grateful for that.
Yeah. See, this is what I think Frank Whitney would love to hear, is that Daily Word has been handed down through generations, and people read it for decades. Jim, I'm being told by our chat moderators that you know the history of the Fillmore Festival, and I realized I don't.
Yeah, so it was run by a group of ministers for many, many years, 50 years. And when I came in 2016 and 2017, Reverend Joyce was about to retire and was looking for a way to continue the legacy. And so Mark and I went down to her very last Fillmore. We presented her with a beautiful award for her work and commitment to that practice of the annual Fillmore Festival. And I can tell you, at the moment, we really felt like we had big shoes to fill. But we ended up bringing it here to the village, and it has grown every year. And like you said, Ellen, it's littered each year with some of the most ardent students of history and Charles and Myrtle. And I think one of the things that makes it most interesting is interpretation. Everyone has a bit of a different interpretation around what Charles taught and what Myrtle taught. But more importantly, and probably most impactfully, is I think we all get this: when you're on a spiritual path and you grow and you get deeper and you want to get deeper and then you want to get even more deeper, and the Fillmore Festival provides a really great space to dig deeply into these teachings. And there hasn't been one that I've been to where I haven't walked away basically as a changed person, because something I learned or some new awakening, some new insight that really just changed my life. Just the so many interesting things about Charles and Myrtle that you don't know. I mean, unless you're spending all of your time in the archives, there's always someone. And for years, and it's starting to get to be a smaller and smaller group. But for years, there are people that served with Charles and Myrtle that would be there and would speak to some of their experiences, which were just really awesome to hear, and it really connects you even more with the history. So if you get a chance and you're really looking to deepen your experience of these teachings or Daily Word or any of the topics we've talked about, I would encourage you that you come here and visit our sacred campus. You'll love it. There's lots of sacred spaces, and we'll certainly welcome you and make sure that your experience is powerful. Indeed.
Yeah, you should also know that we are digitizing all of the archives, all of Myrtle's papers and letters. Her collection we've done first. We'll have Charles later on. We'll have Eric Butterworth, and it will all be online. What's been published and what hasn't been published. You can go look at the originals in their handwriting. There are lots of historic photographs. The chat moderators may be able to tell you how to get to that digital archive, because it is already set up and it's just going to grow through the years. And I think we'll get some more fascinating scholarship out of that. All right, we've been here an hour already. Thanks to all of our panelists for joining us tonight to focus on Daily Word and its meaning through the years, which will also be the topic of this Fillmore Festival in August. The book is available. It's a big book. It's 3 pounds, but you can use it all the time. If you need a message about healing, if you need a message about forgiveness, you can turn to it and see, well, what were they saying in 1925? What did they say on my birthday? I think you'll really enjoy it. It turned out beautifully. We will email you in a couple of weeks when this recording is ready, and watch your email for future Unity Books Presents events. We have 2 new books coming this fall. One is about healing and one is about overcoming heartbreak. So I guess they're both about healing. Anyway, we will see you again at Unity Books Presents. Good night and thank you for coming.